Call to order the regular meeting for Tonganoxie USD 464 Board of Education for Monday, September 8th, 2025. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Is there a motion to approve the agenda?
Make a motion to approve the agenda.
Is there a second?
I second.
All those in favor, raise your right hand. For the same sign, motion carries. Okay, so we have two different but related budget hearings tonight. So we have our revenue neutral rate hearing here at 6 o'clock, and then as soon as that's over, assuming it's after 6:10, we'll move into the budget hearing. Want to make a few comments before we jump into that, just to kind of share the kind of where we are and what's been proposed. So the board is currently proposing a mill levy of 60.944 mills. Last year we were at 59.772, so that's up 1.172 mills over the mill rate level last year, and the revenue neutral rate is 56.721 mills. So why? I guess let me take a step back. So the district has over the last 5 years actually lowered the mill by 2.7 mills roughly. In that same time, the high school bond project was passed, which we projected around an increase of 3 mills. So not only did we not increase it 3 mills, we actually have brought it down 2.7 mills over that same period of time. We've kept it flat the last couple of years. We were down fractionally last year, but it was flat for all practical purposes. Kind of in terms of why we're up this year. So our state aid around bonds continues to drop. So 2 years ago it was at 35%, then 30%. Now this year it's at 25%. We're actually projecting 20% state aid next year. So, nearly dropped in half. SPED funding continues to be a challenge. So statutorily, the state's supposed to provide 92% special education funding. That number is actually closer to the mid 60s to upper 70s for most districts, including Tonganoxie. And the only way that we have to make that up is through the general fund. Assuming that we continue down the trend that we're going with state aid funding and SPED funding, I think it's fairly unlikely that we will have any significant drops in mill rates on upcoming years. Hopefully we can keep it flat, but I think some of the drops we'd seen in previous years are probably gone. A couple of things that I would add. So when everybody got their notice of property tax increase, there was actually an error on that. So the Recreation Commission, which is technically not part of our district, it's governed by a separate body. Originally it showed a 76% increase, and that was an error. So they wouldn't rescind them, but the corrected ones are on the county website, and it's actually 5.01%. So technically not the school district, but it's listed as USD 464 Recreation. So I wanted to address that. I think I can speak for the board. The goal of this board is certainly that we understand the pressure that taxes place on our families. Certainly we're all taxpayers ourselves, and we take that to heart and understand the tremendous responsibility that we have relative to taxation. And again, we've worked hard to keep that in check, and in fact, as I mentioned a moment ago, brought the mill rate down. We are in an inflationary environment. It costs more to run the school every year. And we have made some significant strides with teacher salaries over the last kind of 5 years. So I think the lowest that we did was 3% last year in 2024, but it's been between 4 and 7% every other year to try and catch up with other districts in the area. Additionally, we've significantly spent down cash balances, particularly in the SPED space. So I think with that, we'll open up the floor. I'd remind everyone that this, you get 2 minutes. And that this is not intended to be a back and forth. We're here to listen, but this is not intended to be a back and forth negotiation. So with that, I would open up the floor.
I'm happy to start. My name is Cecilia Pruitt. I think a lot of you know me. You're probably not going to like what I have to say, but I'm going to tell you right here and right now. I'm probably one of the best advocates in this town for public education. In fact, the last time I was at the State Department, holding up a nice little sign for the representatives that said, and telling them public funds for public education, I got a very nasty hand signal from a Republican representative. So take it for what you are. It doesn't stop me. Okay, thank you, Mr. Sturgeon, for correcting on this nice little paper that Leavenworth County sent me out, because I didn't know that. And thank you for informing me that we can't add these percentages, to be a total. So I understand that now. My wrong, and I'm always willing to admit when I'm wrong. First, I want to look at what it costs for our parents to enroll a child in Tonganoxie. I'm going to use the example of a 7th grader. $100 for required school supplies, $180 for school fees, $60 for the first 2 weeks for them to eat at school. That's $340 right away, right off the bat. Boy, am I glad my kids were in a long time ago, because that would have been over $1,000 for us. So, we're looking at, this is for a free public education, right? And maybe this child might want to play a sport or do something else that's going to cost their parents more money. So I want you to think about that parent who's paying this type of fees, this amount of fees, and the fact that you want more taxes from them. Looking at what homes run in Tonganoxie, you're probably looking at anywhere from $60 on up a year. That may not seem like much money to you, but think about the parent who's paying $8 to $9 for a pound of ground beef to feed that child at night. They're not getting an increase. Possibly they are, but look around at your board. Do you honestly, any of you, think that the average person in Tonganoxie sending their kids to school has the same money that you have in your pocket? Not from the people that I know. All right. Everybody is being asked to stretch their dollars more and more and more. I've talked about parents and how hard it is for them. I want you to think about the elderly people in this town. I guess that's me, although I don't like to admit it, but my husband and I are blessed by God. I don't, can't give any financial advice or anything, but we managed to put ourselves in a stable position for retirement. Do you realize there are elderly people that are already making the decision, do I buy this medication or do I forego this meat for dinner? These are people who have lived their entire lives in this town and they want to continue to live here. So I guess my bottom line is we are all being asked to do more with less. Everybody, if you walk into the grocery store, you know that. $40, $80 might not seem like much money to you. That's what I could. You're looking at me with a puzzle, Chris, and that's what I've been told is the average increase will be for a person, anywhere
Right.
up. But there are people in this town that is a matter of livelihood. We have to have empathy for all of our residents. Talking about some of the problems that Mr. Sturgeon just brought up, I would ask you please to join me. I go up to that Capitol. I talk to my representatives. I fought for, as I said, public funds for public schools. If you don't realize it now, you better talk to your representative. That's why we're not getting paid for special education. It isn't on the backs of everybody sitting here. It's on the backs of all of us to make our representatives listen to us. Please, I'm asking you, have empathy for the people in Tonganoxie who are not as well off as you are. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Erin Ellsworth. Do you need an address or anything? No? Okay. I appreciate the president's correction of the 76%. That was a little startling when I saw that. And the acknowledgement that we are in an inflationary environment, and you all know it. It's not news to any of us. We moved to Tonganoxie 15 years ago, and I have sat in many meetings for the county commission saying, look, you charge us too much. You charge us too much. But the truth is, more than 50% of what I'm being charged is coming here. It's not going to the state. It's not going to the county. It's coming here. That's where the majority of our taxes are, that everybody's blaming on the county commission. And quite often people are like, oh, it only affects the people on fixed incomes. That's not true. Most people in Tonganoxie probably cannot go to their boss and say, I need another $1,500 to pay for the schools this year. It's not happening. Raises don't come out like that. Things just don't really happen that way. When you look at where I live, in a very modest house without granite, with a gravel driveway, an 1,800 square foot house on 10 acres, I'm paying a small fortune for the school. It's not just the retired that are having challenges. We're looking, hopefully, to retire soon. We've been here 15 years. We don't want to go anywhere. Tonganoxie is a wonderful place. But it will be a discussion point about that 50% of our taxes that are coming here. And I know y'all have heard it for years now, but it is your job to make difficult decisions. It is your job to make difficult decisions. And I wish I knew that you weren't getting all the money from the state for special education. That is absolutely inappropriate. And I would more than willing do whatever I need to do to help argue with people over that. Anyways, I'm just wanted to, it's hard. I know it's hard, but we have to make some really, really difficult decisions. And sometimes, personally, new paint is really nice, but is it really necessary? I'm not talking about anything in specific. I'm talking very generally. That sometimes I think we get a little over concerned with aesthetics and we forget about the very, very basic things. I believe in education. I have a PhD. I wouldn't have a PhD if I didn't believe in education. It's very, very important for us. So thank you.
Can I add one thing?
Sure.
All right. I meant to say, I'm a little discombobulated. I was home with a sick grandchild today, and I had another grandchild that had surgery, so forgive me, please. All's well, though. The school district is already getting more money. Evaluations went up, and we've added several new homes, but enrollment is staying stable. Just wanted to ask.
Other comments? Going once. Cool.
So I was the example of the parent that she used for fees. And my name's Christina Stein. I grew up in Tongi since the second grade. Came from KCK. So where is the budget? Do you have a budget available online? And do you guys budget? I work for the federal government also, so we budget ahead a few years. Do you guys also do that? Do you do projected budgets? Okay, and the budget is available online? Mm-hmm. Okay. You said that the state pays 62% of special ed.
It's a little higher than that.
It's
It's a little higher than that.
It's a little higher than that?
It depends on the district. It's somewhere in the low 60s to mid 70s.
We're around 69 to 70%.
Is it because we have a low enrollment of special ed?
No.
No? Okay. And so that's something that that the school needs to advocate for, correct? Like
Yes,
apply for?
we are,
Okay.
and that is what we're doing.
Okay.
yes.
And then, can you tell us what the increase is for specifically, or is it just overall?
In special education,
No, for this increase that you guys are requesting. Is it just an overall increase for everything, or is it specific, is there a specific reason for the increase?
So it's really in all areas. It's the cost to operate the school.
Okay. And that's included in the budget online, all the operations. Okay, thank you. That's all I need to know.
Any other comments? Okay, open it up to board discussion. So there is a revenue neutral rate resolution, and there will be a roll call vote. Is there any discussion from the board? So I think the only thing I would add, and I said at the beginning, I'm glad to see people in the audience. Frankly, that doesn't happen enough. And I would tell you that this board, while we are proposing an increase in taxes, takes this responsibility very seriously. We consistently look at ways to cut costs. We do advocate for ourselves, but certainly help advocating for sped funding is a place we could use everyone's help. So I'll read the resolution and then we can do a roll call vote. A resolution expressing the property taxation policy of USD 464 Tonganoxie with respect to exceeding the revenue neutral tax rate for financing the annual budget for 2025-2026. KSA 79-2988 provides that the levy of property taxes to finance the 2025-2026 budget of USD 464 exceeds the revenue neutral tax rate to finance the 2025-2026 budget of USD 464. Be authorized by resolution. Now therefore be it resolved by USD 464 that the 2025-2026 budget with a levy of property taxes exceeding the revenue neutral tax rates calculated for 2025-2026 as adjusted pursuant to KSA 79-2988 is hereby adopted. Adoption this 8th day of September 2025 by the USD 464 Tonganoxie in Leavenworth County, Kansas. So we do need a roll call vote to adopt the resolution, and we'll go around the room. Mr. Dean,
Yes.
Mrs. Vernon,
Yes.
Mrs. Shoup,
Yes.
Mr. Gretton,
Yes.
Mr. Bruni,
Yes.
Mrs. Batari,
Yes.
and I vote yes. So the revenue neutral resolution passes. We are past 6:10, so now we move into the budget hearing, which is kind of the same thing, but we would open up the floor for further comments if there are any.
My apologies, I'm gonna speak out because of my grandchild.
Okay.
Thank you.
Any comments?
My name's Rex Miller. I've been here living in Tongi for about 25 years now. I'm retired. I retired 3 years ago. Now, I'm on a fixed income. My wife is retired just this last year. She was a school teacher up in Leavenworth. And if you look at our increases in our annual budget, we're probably less than 2.5% a year. And our taxes are going up 5, 6, 8% every year, have been since I've been here, for a long time. And to see spending increases constantly going up 6, 7, 8%, and my income's only coming up 2.5, 3% maybe, it just, okay, where's all the spending going? Because I have to balance my budget to stay, or I'm gonna have a problem. And eventually, if this continues on this way, it's gonna price me out of my house as far as the taxes go. My home is paid for, but when you're paying $8,000 a year in property taxes on a $2,000 home on 5 acres in the country, and then it keeps going and going and going, I will get to the point I cannot afford it. and I already had a neighbor 2 houses down from me. He sold his house and left just because he couldn't afford the taxes anymore. Now, his house was quite a bit more. But I just think that budgets need to, you got to look at what our inflation rates are and try to keep the budget within that area. And we're looking at what, no more than 3% inflation right now, even though we did have a pretty good hike in the last 4 years. Our spending needs to match that, and not, okay, we need to spend more, so we're going to collect more. Okay, that's all I got.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other comments? All right, we will adjourn the budget hearing and move into the regular meeting. Thank you all for attending, and you are certainly welcome to stay. Moving into presentations, item 4.1, driver's education program.
Hi, my name is Stacy Emmett, and I am the head of the driver's ed program here at Tonganoxie. And I was contacted to ask if I wouldn't mind presenting some information with you. Okay, so I'm just going to do a general overview of our driver's ed program. Starting with, our driver's ed is made up of 2 parts. Students will come to us, and they typically right after school stops. We have classes. The 2 parts are made up of class time and of drive time. When students are with us for class time, it's approximately 20 hours of instruction. We cover 18 chapters over 5 different units. They're tested over each unit, and they must pass with an 80% or above. We do allow them to retake assessments if they need to. The very first assessment is their driver's learner's permit test. So we have a limited number of times they can retake that. We never run into the problem where we've had, I'm gonna knock on some wood, someone not pass once they've had class with us. In addition to this class time that we spend together in the classroom, I also try to have in a couple of guest speakers. In the recent past, our SRO has come in and talked to students about what to expect if they are pulled over for any reason. We actually have the kids go out in the driver's ed cars and sit with the police cars with lights and stuff on behind them, and the officers, usually our SRO brings someone with him. They come and they simulate a traffic stop for them so they can kind of get those first time jitters out of the way. I know it's not exactly the same, but it's very similar. We've also had Roy Emmett of Roy Emmett Trucking come and bring his semi and tractor trailer. When he does that, we park the driver's ed cars, and I bring extra cars up. We park it all around the semi so kids can get in and see just exactly what it looks like from up there. He lets them get in the cab of the truck, asks all kinds of questions. He talks to them about truck safety, and not just semi truck safety, but also in our area we're a very high ag traffic area. So he talks about what you should and shouldn't do around tractors and things like that are on the road. So it's kind of a hands-on situation for them. It's pretty interesting. A lot of them have never been that close to a truck. I mean, you drive by them on cars, but you never stood next to one. So it's kind of fun for them to see, and we always get some interesting comments from that. In conjunction with class time, it's only 2 hours of our day, we have different driving sessions, so that makes up part 2. So kids are also in the car with us. Not everybody can drive at the same time, so we have several different weeks of driving. So some kids will take class and drive, and other kids will take all their class, and then they'll drive after classes are over for the summer. They spend 10 hours in a car with us. 5 of those they are actively driving, and the other 5 they are actively observing, which is different than just riding around in a car with your head in your phone. We talk about all kinds of situations. By the time we are done, we start on the day one, how do you start this car? Where are the windshield wipers? How do the blinkers work? To at the end of our 5 days together, we are merging off and on 70-mile-an-hour highway speed traffic. We get off and on K10 1,000 times a day. We also take them like to downtown Lawrence. We drive up to Atchison. There's a lot of things they get to do behind the car. And you would be crazy. You would be surprised what you see when you sit in a car for 8 hours a day. All the crazy drivers. I say we get a lot of examples of some not what to do situations. Some things I get asked quite often about our program is, do you have to have a learner's permit before you take a driver's ed test? Nope. Even if you have one, the very first class, we have class and then we take the driver's permit test at the end. It's just a requirement from the state for our program. So you do not have to have a driver's permit before you take our class. Do we work with summer schedules like vacations and camps and stuff? For the most part, no, we just couldn't. Like, we have a limited number of resources and a limited number of time that we can do that. So I cannot schedule around everybody's personal vacation. The kids and parents do get paperwork to fill out before driver's ed starts, and we do our very best to work around as many situations as we can. We let them pick driving partners if they want. If they're in football camp, we make sure they're not driving that week. But our class time is non-negotiable. It's from 7 a.m. to 9 a.m., 2 weeks straight. Usually that gets us out of overrunning other programs and things, and we try to do it at the very beginning. I mean, we literally, our last teacher day will be on a Monday this year. We start driver's ed on Wednesday, just a couple of days after that. So the kids aren't even out a full week before we start driver's ed. Do we take incoming freshmen and out-of-district students? As a general rule, no. We want to make sure we offer this service to as many current high school students as possible. One of the reasons we got away from taking the 8th graders is, as time has progressed, the age of our students who are taking driver's ed are getting older and older. I've had in the last couple years probably 5 or 6 18-year-olds taking driver's ed. Kids just aren't driving as quickly as they used to. I would have driven a box on wheels at 14 if somebody had let me have one, as long as I had a motor on it. But now kids are a little more standoffish about driving. So we are seeing more and more older drivers want to participate. And if we fill that up with 8th graders or out-of-district students, it just takes away opportunities for our kids. So we don't normally take the incoming 8th graders, like incoming freshmen who just finished 8th grade, or out-of-district students. Now, the exception to out-of-district students would be this. We have out-of-district students in our student population. We don't treat them as out-of-district students when it comes to that caveat. I'm talking like kids from Turner asked to come take our class, Piper, Leavenworth, Lansing. Like, we have a lot of different populations close to us that would like to come take our program. So that's the out-of-district students I'm talking about. There is a cost. We seem to be a little bit lower than some of the driving schools around. It is $275 for in-district and $300 for out-of-district. What does it look like? Like our schedule, the first day after spring break, I have all the paperwork ready for our kids in the office. They just come by, pick it up, drop it off with their check. The registration deadline is that last Friday in April. That just gives me enough time to sit down and schedule. If you have 40 or 50 people on different schedules, different times, it's a lot. I have to look at their addresses and see where they live and who they want to partner with and what days they can and can't drive. It's a lot. So I try not to wait till the last minute to get all that information. So the last Friday in April is the day. All of our classes meet from 7 to 9. I already know the dates that we're going to be meeting this summer, so if you're interested in that, those are the 10 days that we are going to meet. There are 4 different driving sessions. You drive for 5 days straight. With the exception of that first session, we start on a Friday so that we can take Memorial Day off, and that will give us our 5 days of driving. Hopefully, unless we just have a ton of people sign up, we plan on ending on June 19th. We do drive sometimes later than that. We aren't like the driver's ed used to be, where you drive all summer long, because I like to have a little bit of a break before I have to come back here. So usually we're wrapped up by the end of June. So unless there's something strange going on, we won't have any other of those. Some of the benefits of taking driver's ed: it builds student confidence. I have literally had people who've never sat in the driver's seat before go from that Monday morning to Friday being one of my best drivers, getting off and on K-10. Personal responsibility: we talk a lot about how important it is to be responsible when you're driving. When you're driving a 3,000-pound machine around that can do a lot of damage to you and yourself. We do go over quite a few defensive driving techniques. Sometimes we have to do that while we're out. Just depends on who's around us. We give a greater awareness of the drug and alcohol consequences. We go through all the laws that are required, and fees and things that happen if that happens for you. We talk about rules of the road, general and some common sense things. We also talk about how you jumpstart your car, how you change a flat on a car. This was one of the first summers in the last 5 that we haven't had a flat tire sometime while we're out. It's just the nature of the beast. Also, for some insurances, it will lower your insurance premiums. Not all of those are adhering to that as much as they used to, but some still do, so it could help you get a little lower insurance premium. It also helps you get your restricted quicker if you take driver's ed versus if you don't. I know that isn't always important to some people, but some people are not letting their kids drive until they are really legal to have their restricted, and driver's ed is one of the ways to get that a little bit faster. Do you guys have any questions for me?
Yeah, I did. Thank you for coming. Very
Sure.
informative. Obviously, very big benefit. I've got kids in that age group now. I was curious how many students were able to accommodate for a year in our program.
We usually have between 40 and 50. It varies
Okay.
depending. This was the first year that I've had to tell someone that they couldn't take driver's ed, and it was mainly because they did not sign up by the deadline. Pretty much our rule is if you sign up by the deadline, we're taking you. So if that's 60 kids, we take 60 kids. But I had someone try to join the day before school was out. So 3 weeks past the deadline, and I'd already made all the partners, it just was not gonna work out for them. So pretty much if you sign up before the end of our registration period, we'll take you.
And I do know that some kids that want to get their farm permits or whatnot, if they're incoming freshmen, they wouldn't be able to take it. Is there any opportunity to lower that?
If we don't fill up, like if we don't have very many kids, I usually take a running list because every year I get asked by 8th grade parents, could their kid take driver's ed? If I don't have a lot of kids and we have space, we'll take 8th graders. But as a general rule, they're not our first priority because we want to offer it to the kids who are already at the high school.
Gotcha.
Because you don't have to have driver's ed to get your farm permit.
Okay.
It's
I just know a lot of
scary,
kids around
but
Tonganoxie or
it's the rules.
yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it definitely, like if we have, like I usually take a running list, I'll have several 8th grade parents contact me, and I just keep a list of who contacts me first, and if I have 2 or 3 or 4 spaces, I will get a hold of them and have them sign up.
Okay. I was
Yeah.
just wanting to make sure we're accommodating the number of kids that want to take it, and I didn't know if it's cost prohibitive or anything to
Well, there's
to
only
increase
2 of
our
us
numbers.
that drive.
Okay.
So that also cuts down on the number of people we can take. It's not for lack of trying. I think I've gone through 2 or 3 or 4 instructors just because somebody gets trained and they go to a different district. Someone gets trained and they move up in the food chain, so they're no longer a teacher, they're an admin. So hopefully I have somebody on the hook for this semester, or for this next year that is young enough and stable enough here in our community. I don't think they'll be moving on. And then we've also had somebody retire who had done it for several years. So it's just been a weird few years. But if we could get 3 instructors, we could take more kids. But I've worked for almost a year to get the extra 1 that I've got.
Understand.
Any other comments or questions?
I have a quick comment. Stacy found out today that she has been nominated by the Tonganoxie High School and the school district as our Kansas Teacher of the Year applicant. And so She received that notification this morning, and I think there were probably 250 kids up
Upstairs,
there.
yeah.
And so it was a really nice moment, and congratulations to you for that
Thank you very
nomination,
much.
and best of luck as you go through that application process. We actually nominated 2 this year,
We
Three.
have one
Three.
elementary, one secondary,
And
then
Horizon.
one Horizon.
and so high school
Very good.
applicant.
Thank you.
Well, congratulations and thank you
Thank
for
you.
what you do. This certainly an important part of keeping our kids and our community safe, so thank you.
Thank you.
All right, next presentation is Mr. Cullinan. So as most of you know, we have a special education co-op with Baser. And it's been a bit since we've heard from the co-op to the board, and we're gonna try to make this a more recurring thing. But the floor is yours.
Just give it a second.
It takes a minute.
Well, good evening. As Mr. Sturgis said, I'm Chris Cullinan. I'm the new Director of Special Education in the cooperative. I appreciate you giving me a few minutes this evening to give you an update from the cooperative. I just kind of wanted to start by giving you a few numbers from our office and then staffing numbers across our cooperative. Our cooperative consists of 2 administrators. That's myself and our Assistant Director of Special Education, Melanie French. We have 3 office staff members. One of them is part-time, and those folks do a lot to support us. Probably their main role is they help with our reporting to the state and organizing all of that data. So we have to report regularly to the state our student data on the special education services we provide. We also need to report staffing data that directly impacts how the state partially funds special education. We also have 3 special education support coaches who work with buildings, teams, and individual teachers to provide instructional support, support with programming, support problem solving on how we can most effectively meet the needs of students out in buildings. Within Tonganoxie, we have 38 certified special education staff. That includes our special education teachers, speech language pathologists, occupational therapists, school psychologists. We also have 11 certified staff that work in both Tonganoxie and Baser Linwood. And so those would be some positions like our transition facilitator, adaptive PE teacher, physical therapist, some of those types of positions. As of mid last week, we were serving 348 students in Tonganoxie within special education. That includes both students who are gifted. It also includes students who have disabilities. We also have 9 center-based programs within our cooperative, and our center-based programs are programs designed to effectively meet the special education needs of some of our students with the more intensive needs. We do have one of those programs that is here within Tonganoxie, and that is our center-based resource program. That we have one at the elementary, the middle school, and the high school. And that program primarily serves students who receive a majority of their core instruction within a special education setting. Most of them also have some aspect of daily living skills that are incorporated into their daily programming. We have 2 other programs that are housed in buildings within Baser Linwood. The next one is our structured learning classroom, and that is for students with pretty significant needs in the area of communication and social skills. Many of those needs are comparable to characteristics that you might see of students with autism. And so we have a program at the elementary, middle school, and high school in Baser Linwood. We also have a social emotional resource center-based program at the elementary, middle school, and high school in Baser, and that is to serve our students with intensive social, emotional, and behavioral needs. And so each one of these programs serves both students from Tonganoxie and Baser Linwood, as it's a cooperative program. We serve students in both districts within those programs. I wanted to give a very brief 3,000 foot view of our budget for 25-26. Our expenditure budget is $11.282 million this year. The vast majority, 95.4% of that is personnel. So the vast majority of our budget is paying salary and benefits to our employees. We started this year with just a little over $132,000 in our cash balances. We do have a short-term goal to increase that to $250,000. Now, one of the reasons that is important is special funding for special education can get tricky. You can't always anticipate the needs. The needs of special education students vary greatly across our district, and year to year, we don't always know the students that we are going to serve. And so, there are always the potential that students move in who require more intensive services, and so we want to be prepared that we can meet unexpected needs as those arise. Some other important information I thought that would be important to note: 52% of our budget for this school year is local assessments. And so that's a pretty high percentage that is coming from each district. And that is determined based on our cooperative agreement. Each district pays a percentage that is based on last year's audited student count. And so Baser had a higher audited student count, so they pay a little bit more into our cooperative. You can kind of see the percentages there. We get some money, federal money, and a few other small places, but the other majority of our operating income comes from our state special education aid. And that is the area that Mr. Sturgeon was alluding to earlier in terms of that 92% excess cost that the state is supposed to fund special education. And that's an estimated number. We don't know how much money we are going to get in special education until the year is nearly over. So we have to kind of budget a little bit high, and it's a little bit of a guessing game. Right now, they anticipate that we will get the vast majority of the money that comes for special education from the state is through teacher reimbursement. So we get funding for every staff member within our district. And right now, it's estimated that they will be paying us $29,600 per staff member. That is $1,200 lower per staff member that they paid us the previous year. So there is an estimated decrease there. Again, we won't know what that final number is until probably sometime in May. The state has one pool of money that the legislators determine is for special education. And right off the top, one of the biggest things is transportation. They always pay transportation costs first, reimburse 80% of those costs that districts incur. Operating on the theory of inflation and assuming transportation costs are going to increase each year, unless the legislators are increasing funding, that's less money theoretically that will be divided amongst the districts. And so, we work with our organizations to try and advocate with the state to look at special education funding. There is a committee working right now that is looking at different ways to fund special education, different methods than the teacher reimbursement method that has been in place for a little while. And so I certainly, as I get updates on that committee work, I'll provide that information to Lauren, and he can kind of share those things out. I want to touch base briefly on how we make staffing decisions, because we've been very deliberate about that going into this school year. We want to make sure that we meet all of the needs of our special education student population, but we want to do that in a very thoughtful and deliberate manner. So initially, we take a global perspective first. Every month this year, we will be looking at numbers, special education student numbers in the building, special education student numbers in programs, to ensure that we are adequately staffing buildings to meet student needs. That begins globally. As we look at those numbers, we look at student-teacher ratios, we look at entire staff-student ratios, and that helps us make sure One, that we are providing staff that we believe is appropriate given the student population. It also helps us ensure that we are consistent across the cooperative in terms of how we are staffing buildings. And then we also get down to the individual student level. So we start globally, but if you look at our spreadsheets, there's notes after notes, because we may allocate a certain amount of staff to a building, but individual students have individual needs. And so as we look at individual student needs, sometimes those things change, and we may allocate some additional, say, paraeducation staff to ensure that we meet those needs. And so big picture is, we start globally, and then we do really narrow down into the individual student need within each building. Finally, I just want to talk a little bit about some focuses we have for the year as a cooperative. First are our priorities, and these are areas that we have identified unlikely to change year to year. These are things that are important year over year. First and foremost being student achievement. That's the number one priority of ours is to ensure our students are achieving, specifically every student experiencing growth, whether it be academically, social-emotionally, and or behaviorally. The next priority is our compliance with KSDE performance indicators. And those indicators are a way that the State Department of Education evaluates us as a cooperative and as a district, and our ability to make sure that we are in compliance with federal law and meeting student needs. And the final area is ensuring that our special education staff are engaged, as well as have a high level of job satisfaction. One of the most important things we feel like we do is partnering with buildings to hire the highest quality staff that we can hire, develop them, support them, and then retain them in the district. And a big piece of that is helping to make sure staff are engaged and have satisfaction in their work. This year, we've identified 3 focus areas in the cooperative that we feel are important in helping us meet those priorities. First one is communication. Communication is always important, but with the shifts in our cooperative and different people taking on different responsibilities, we thought it was extra important to ensure, one, that we are communicating with the boards of education in both districts, that we are communicating with our district leaders, building leadership, and our special education staff across the cooperative. And so that means we are communicating regularly and often, and we are being clear and consistent with our internal messaging. Second area is in the area of professional development. We worked really hard this summer to ensure that each of our special education employees, no matter what their discipline, had a clear outline and plan for their professional development for the entire school year. And so we worked really hard with district administration and building principals to make sure that happened. One of the things we are doing is really looking at our special education support coaches and really reimagining how we can provide professional development through their instructional coaching. And we've already started partnering with Brandy and her team to ensure that we have some kind of consistent messaging and how we can best support in the instructional growth of our special education staff. Additionally, we tried this year to build in some additional professional development for paraeducators at the beginning of the year. That was important to us because paraeducators have an extremely difficult job, and to be quite honest, there's not a lot of time throughout the year, and so we are working hard to find that time where we can, albeit at the beginning of the year or during early release times, to make sure that they get the support that they need to help our students. And we're also doing regular monthly professional development with our administrators, our building administrators, so we can continue to partner, collaborate, and build the capacity of those leaders to help support special education in the buildings. Our final area is fiscal responsibility. As I mentioned to administrators at the beginning of the year, they should see no difference in this. This is hopefully things that we're doing on the back end. We still will provide high quality special education services to all of our students. But there are a few things that we're focusing on in the fiscal arena to ensure that we are being as fiscally responsible as we can be. The first piece starts with staffing, and that started with our office. We reduced one administrator this school year. We reduced one office staff member through attrition, and so we are learning to be more efficient and effective in how we are operating within our cooperative. We've also had a lot of conversation with building administrators, and kind of back to the previous slide about staffing. We want to make sure every student gets the support that they need, but we also want to be very deliberate and have a data-based approach to how we determine staffing in buildings. Second piece is limiting contract agencies. While it's not a huge portion of money within the entire budget, it can be costly. And contract agencies are great in the sense that if we have positions that are hard to fill positions, staffing agencies can really help us when we're in a bind. They are very costly. And so by effectively hiring hard to fill positions and retaining those folks, that can help us limit the amount that we have to use contracting agencies. And this school year, we have been fortunate. This summer, we were able to hire some key positions, and we're able to keep some folks that we had hired the previous year. And as of right now, we hope that we're going to save around $250,000 just in contract agencies. Again, that's now. We don't know what students are going to move in, what's going to happen, but that has been a focus for us in terms of the staffing and saving money where we can. The last piece is maximizing revenue, and talking to you about revenue is never something I thought as a special education professional I would be talking about, bringing in revenue, but the reality is it's something that we have to think about as a cooperative, and we spent time this summer working with our partners, working with KSDE to ensure that we are reporting information and communicating with our partners in a way that we get every dollar that's entitled to us. And that's important because that is what our kids need. And so those are our focuses this year that we hope, if we continue to improve and do well in these areas, that it will only help us continue with our priorities. And with that, I'm happy to take any questions anyone might have.
Questions? Go ahead.
Oh, good.
No, go ahead.
Oh, I'll say appreciate you coming and providing a high level overview of SPED services. I'm new to the board, but this is the first time I've heard from special education, so really appreciate it. And appreciate your focus on more communication. So I think it would be great to at future meetings, I think it would be great to dive into some of the indicator data and some of the other kind of data to so we can I don't think I have a good sense overall of performance, student outcomes, and that kind of thing.
Absolutely.
So it'd be great to learn more about that.
Happy to do that.
Quick question. So a lot of special education students are in general education classrooms, many times unsupported by a teacher or a para, like when they're in those rooms. So do the coaches ever consider providing tips and things to the teachers? Is that something that ever, that happens for the teachers that are general education, that are outside of your
Absolutely.
group?
Absolutely. Their first focus is supporting our special education staff, but part of their work is supporting general education teachers, and we will have our either behavior coaches or our special education support coaches spend time in general education, sometimes modeling things for general education teachers. And so yes, that happens, and that's something that we are aware of and work with all of our special education staff, because we understand that partnership. Nothing happens in a vacuum. It takes an entire team to effectively support our special education students, and that includes our general education staff as well.
And you talked about communication. I do think it's great to have additional communication, I think, to the board, but maybe also to some of those general education teachers. I know we have coaches and maybe some of those tips that working with a child that struggles in this area, this might be a great way to approach it. Maybe providing more of those types of things to the general education teachers might be helpful outside of the special education teachers.
Appreciate that. Thank you.
Any other questions, comments? I think I would just conclude with a comment. So, I think from my perspective, and I think the board, the special education co-op is a tremendous lever that we have to get scale and efficiencies across both districts. And certainly, as we know, the special education landscape in terms of funding continues to be a challenge. There's been a fair bit of turnover in Baser, new superintendent. You're newer to this role, and some of the predictability that I think we've talked about at past board meetings has been a question. But having met with Chris and Lauren several weeks ago, I feel really confident that we've got the right team in place to help drive the predictability that we all want to see. And so I appreciate you taking the time to come and visit with us tonight. Okay, thank you.
Great, thanks.
Chris.
Mrs. Taylor.
Hello, everyone. Good evening. I, of course, have handouts, like all good teachers. Sorry, you've already seen this.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay. This first document that we're gonna look at is the same thing that hi everyone, I'm Brandy Taylor. I am the Director of School Improvement Services here at Tonganoxie. Sorry, I'm, on a schedule usually. But we are going to just give a little brief update about what's been going on with the School Improvement Services Department, myself, my instructional coaches, and just kind of update on things that have been going on in the district so far this year, some things that we already have planned. So this first document is our goal sheet for the year that kind of just reminds teachers, but this went out to everyone in our district, paras, bus drivers, everyone who got a t-shirt this year at our very first convocation day. When we welcomed everyone back, we wanted everybody to know that the what, the why, the how for where we're at in terms of our Tongi framework, increasing our rigor and achievement, and strengthening our PLCs. These goals have changed very little since last year. We are continuing to do these same practices and procedures. A lot of the things that are different are going to be discussed when I talk a little bit more about professional development, but I did want to draw your attention to just that increasing the rigor and achievement right there at the top. The what is actually referencing some of our KISA goals and things that we wanted to do just as a district. We really wanted to decrease the number and percentage of students that we have in our level 1, and we really want to increase those students that are performing as 3s and 4s on our state assessment called the CAP. This is our Tongi framework. We are going to be continuing to work with this year. This will be our 3rd year now. There is one change though that was added, well, 2 changes that were added to it, very small, but we wanted to make sure that everyone knew that in gradual release, which is the G, which is one of the things that we're working on in secondary, that we wanted to really reiterate the fact that practice time is important, and that's that I do piece, and it's just there to make sure that teachers understand that little portion is probably the most important part of that gradual release part. And then in the I, we changed that to integrate background knowledge, and we changed that from integrate prior knowledge, because we wanted teachers to feel like they are not continuing to only draw on what the students currently have or previously had learned, but that they are also building up what future teachers will be able to draw on. Our professional development goals. So at TES, we are just now able to dip our toes into the Tangi framework this year. We've already had our very first HIPS training, which is the high impact instructional practices and strategies. Those are under John Hattie, but those are brought to us by some folks at Greenbush who put together some training that many districts in Kansas utilize. We saw this at the secondary level about 2 years ago. When we had Robert Oshak come in. This year we had a really great guy come into our elementary. His name was Dan Maggie, and he was able to help us with getting our elementary folks onto the same page now as our secondary folks, starting with the teaching learning intentions, our needs being assessed frequently, and then the engagement piece. So helping to implement some strategies and practices for the elementary school around those 3 letters specifically. One thing I will say, this was a goal that I made for myself just as I continue to do work in visible learning, is making sure that all students, no matter where they're at in terms of their education or their ability level, that if you are in a classroom in Tonganoxie, you should be able to look up and find out what you're supposed to be learning today. If I walked into class late, or if I have been spaced out, or if I have been stressed out, or if I just have not been paying attention, I can look up in any classroom in Tonganoxie and I should be able to see this. And this should tell me exactly what I am supposed to be learning today, what I should be focused on in terms of my goal for learning. We know from John Hattie's research, as well as a lot of other research in terms of goals, that if you are writing it down, if you are talking about it, if you are discussing it, if people see it, then it's going to be far greater likelihood that you're actually going to accomplish that goal. And so that is a really big push here in the district, making sure that students know what they're learning so that they can say that they learned it. At the secondary level, we are moving on to opportunities to respond, gradual release, and integrating background knowledge. We have already had one of those professional development cycles with that HIPS, and then, which is the high impact instructional practices and strategies. From Greenbush, they came to us in August, and then we've also had 2 professional development days with a reading specialist who helped us with our secondary science of reading. These 2 pieces, the letters piece on the science of reading at the elementary level, and then this secondary piece that's kind of re-emphasizing those pieces as our students grow up in our system. We wanted our secondary teachers to be able to continue to support our students with the science of reading and have some of those practices and strategies so that they are able to kind of hit the same vocabulary and be able to use the same strategies, be able to understand the memory model and why this works and why this doesn't work. So we've had professionals come in and share some of their expertise around that. We've already had 2 of those sessions, and we are going to have 1 more in January, so that we are kind of right there with our elementary folks who already have so much of that valuable information, and that's part of our KISA goal, and so being able to support that at the secondary level is also really beneficial. We have already rolled out our target to everybody, and then we are continuing that structured literacy focus from the K-12. And then we are now moving into an area where we have our administrators able to look at a walkthrough tool and just say, these are the practices and strategies we want to see in a classroom. This is in the Tangi framework. This has been emphasized in professional development. The instructional coaches are talking about it. Now can we see it in your classroom? And we should be able to see those things, and then we can note those on some of our walkthrough tools so that we can really celebrate when we're able to see our teachers using them, and hopefully that would increase as the year goes by, and that will again impact our KISA goals, where we're talking about professional development and our teachers utilizing those really high impact strategies. My focus, just as I continue on through this year, is I'm going to continue to work on professional learning communities, continue to support those, as well as the vertical professional learning communities, which is where we're getting members from our kindergarten all the way up through our teachers at the secondary level, kind of in the same room with content focus. So we have one for social studies, one for ELA, one for math, led by Miss Emmett, one of our great teachers. But we are really starting to see the work that those vertical professional learning communities are able to do. We will continue to work on document-based questions. That's what I spent a good chunk of my day on today, is looking at how I can help to support the 4th and the 5th grade with their document-based questions, because we are looking at writing across all content areas, but really right now we are trying to test it in our social studies classes where it's a not really highly tested area, but we're able to put in that writing essay element of that starting at the 4th grade, and then that continues all the way up through your senior year in high school if you are in that senior year government class. That's supported again by our ELA, who also has that same kind of increase your writing proficiency goal from our vertical PLCs. My focus is continuing to be on screen time, looking at what apps and different things are being used in the classrooms to make sure that we are using things that are supported by research. That is not just something that we are going to put our kids on. We are going to utilize in a way that actually will give us the data that shows this does work for us and our kids. We'll continue to work on engagement, especially at the secondary level. We'll continue to hit that because we've already had so much training in that, but we will continue to hopefully see more of those high impact strategies and practices. And now we're able to hopefully see those at the elementary now that they are starting to get some of that same training within their classes. We'll be doing an HGSS or History, Government, and Social Studies resource adoption this year, so I'll be leading that. That'll start probably in October. We'll have our first meeting, then we'll have meetings throughout the year, and then the adoption will be coming before you guys in about April. I am working with the new CTE or elective teachers at the high school. I've got quite a few of those that I am starting to watch them teach in their classrooms. I'll be meeting with those individuals. I'm just kind of giving them feedback on their instruction to try to keep them kind of on the same page as their counterparts who have already had a lot more training that in those high impact instructional practices and strategies. I'll continue to work with the instructional leads. There are 4 of them at the high school. There are 2 new ones this year. We have a brand new science lead who is leading the instruction at the science level, and then we also have a brand new HGSS or History, Government, Social Studies lead following 2 retirements last year. So we have 2 brand new people who are leading those teams, and they seem to be going really well. I meet with them about every other week and just provide them with a little bit of PD, but also a little bit of feedback. We do some walkthroughs together just so that they're comfortable using the same tools that my instructional coaches and myself use at both the elementary and middle schools. I'm looking to put together the coalition with daycares and preschools across this area just so that we can kind of all be on the same page with what are the best practices and programs that can be used for our kiddos, because those kiddos that aren't in our preschools will still end up in our elementary school and our middle schools and our high schools, and we want to kind of make sure we're all on the same page. And I want to understand where those kiddos are coming from, and if they've got something really great to share with me, I want to hear it, and if I've got something for them, I'm hoping that they would be open to hearing that as well. In an effort to increase communication with the community, myself and Becky Naselroad will actually be putting together a podcast, hopefully by the end of September, that will provide regular updates. We're looking at maybe a monthly situation, but it'll really be dependent on what kind of news we have to share, what kind of updates we want to bring to everybody, just so that there's more of a streamlined communication going. This is something that a lot of our nearby districts already do, so we want to kind of capitalize on the feedback that they've had that's really positive and kind of bring that into Tonganoxie as well. The instructional coaches at TES and TMS, I just want to highlight the amazing work that they're doing. They've done so much work on bringing our care teams up to speed. That would be like the students who we have concerns over, students who we are wanting to help them with behaviors, but students who we are also looking at for academics. Our instructional coaches have been a very important process of making sure that those teams are up and running. PLCs and early release, the instructional coaches have their hands in all of that, making sure that those PLCs are going smoothly, checking in with them on goals. That's been a really big part of TES right now, sending out and getting feedback on their goals that they've already set for themselves. They are integral in making sure that our Kite minis and other data dives are going to go on. because they are our data gurus. They are probably some of the best trained people we have in the district for our FastBridge and our Kite system, so that they are able to dive into those reports and they are able to tell the people in their buildings what those reports mean, where they're going to find the information that they need within those systems. And then we've also had Miss Espy, who works at TMS. She's actually put together a giant data bank, which is going to live with the kids that she has. So right now she's got 5th all the way through 9th grade students, where you can watch every single test that they've taken from the time that they were in kindergarten. And so she is putting all that together so that everybody would have that information at a one single stop, which is phenomenal work, but it's been quite a heavy lift for her. They continue to work and support new teachers. I believe we had 8 new teachers that they're working with at the elementary school, 1 at the middle school, because everyone loves staying at the middle school. But she's doing really great work there. They have set their solo goals, and so they are aware of what they are wanting to accomplish within their own practice. And then they have helped with our Brave Support Time, which is at the elementary school, that tier 2 and tier 3 sometimes, intervention for the reading that's going on. My coaches were the ones that really laid out all the materials, all of the initial testing, things like that. They've been a very big part of that. I'm really proud of the work they've done that, because it seems to be able to, I think, go off without a hitch this year. We're getting ready to do that, so we'll see how that's been going. They are our letters facilitators, so they are actually a key part of the KISA goal that we have for letters training, and making sure that every new teacher that we get, if they have not received that training in their college or university courses, that they would then be able to plug right in with Chris and Amanda and get their letters taken care of so that they can continue to teach here in the state of Kansas. I think that's everything I have, because I already said how amazing they are with FastBridge. And I think that's everything that I wanted to cover in a not so brief, but sort of brief time period. If you guys have any questions.
Questions for Brandy?
Testing, we started off right away with FastBridge. Just kind of good, quick update where we're at.
We are all done testing
with FastBridge.
Yep.
What's the next testing coming down the pike?
So next testing coming down the pike is going to be FastBridge again in December, where we'll be able to check our data from our fall to our winter. We are still waiting on our CAP scores. They've just reset those scores from ELA, so we are waiting on those to come out from KSDE, and then we'll be able to actually compare and see how we did on our goals from last year.
FastBridge reliability. I've heard some people talk about it's not as reliable as some of the other, like MAP testing or other tests. Do you see the same thing, or do you think it's pretty spot on and reliable information?
I think that it's giving us very similar data to what we've seen in the past. I think that there's a K1 shift that a lot of people are talking about, and I think a lot of that really does come down to things like the resource that we uses Xeno words as compared to Fry words, which are emphasized at the FastBridge. So it's like little tiny pieces like that, which we can adjust to, which we can just integrate more of those different resources. And I think just as we find out a little bit more about the test itself, we'll be able to kind of shake those out. But right now, I think it's showing us about the same data that we've had in the past. The biggest shift, I think, is that K1, and I think that that's kind of what we've pinned down the biggest difference.
And were you able to compare the data that, I think we had MAP before, so take that data and be able to...
Yeah, group growth report is still offered in FastBridge. It's a little bit different scale from MAP, but it's pretty similar, the group growth.
Other questions, comments? Thank you, Brandy.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
All right, last presentation, last but not least, Mr. Loomis.
All right. So tonight we're really just kind of want to give you guys a dive into where we're at on the elementary HVAC
replacement of the VRFs. And I know we've talked a lot about this and a lot of different ways to go with this, and so we've really kind of hammered down the approach that we're trying to take here. And just to kind of update everybody, we have met with HTK, who is the architect, the original architect on our elementary school building, so very, very familiar with what we're talking about, and kind of had a walkthrough with them to look at the building, look at the design, and see what our options are based on a lot of the work we've done with Train up to this point. So what HTK, Smith & Boucher, and Train were actually able to get together and kind of share some of the information that we've already had, that we've already done as we've worked on this probably over the last year, and kind of bring everybody up to speed. So what that looks like now is, we sent you a quick update on it last week, but basically our intent is to bring on a construction manager at risk to take over this project for us. And what that means is very similar on a much smaller scale, obviously, to how we built the high school, right? So we had somebody design the building. We have McCown Gordon, who managed the project for us, and then obviously a lot of subcontractors under McCown Gordon to perform the work. And again, a lot of a lot of options on what equipment to use, whether it's floors, paint, flush valve, all sorts of stuff. So it's a much smaller scale, but we want to re-engage that process for the elementary HVAC replacement. And the benefits of that are on our end, I guess, are they can get into that design process with us a little bit, and there's a lot of transparency to this process now with HTK and whoever we select as a CMAR. But there's their ability to help in the design process, right? So as we get into this, they can look at everything in the building and say, yeah, we think this works. Or you have people with real world trade skills that can tell you, hey, this is just, that's not going to happen, and I think anybody that's worked with a design team and then the actual people that are your boots on the ground guys, there's a huge help there. Our CMAR is going to offer us a GMP at some point in time, and so what that is the total cost of the project, and there's a lot of protection for the district in that process. That's your dollar amount that won't be exceeded on the project. So in this design phase with HTK, and then once we bring on a CMAR to help facilitate the costs, the budgets, and all that, we will have a GMP, which is, in lack of a better term, is the total cost of this project. And then as a district, we are protected in that GMP to not exceed that number unless we issue a change order based on maybe an unforeseen circumstance or just something halfway along the way that we say, hey, we don't like this, we want to change this. But that GMP number does carry, there'll be an approval process for you guys. I think December is what we're maybe shooting for on that. But that number will be the number cost of the project. A lot of moving parts here, but the CMAR, again, they offer that GMP coverage. We can see actual cost, ton of risk mitigation. The phrase construction manager at risk puts everything on them, from the ability to operate inside the budget, to safety on the job site, to quality of contractors and subcontractors that we're using. There's just a lot of protection on that. Cost certainty, and then obviously just transparency in the project that we'll have the opportunity to do. So once we get the CMAR on board, then they will begin the process of bidding out the type of equipment we're putting up on the roof. I think at this point we have determined that we are going to put rooftop units back up there in replacement of the VRF. So what you'd see then is the rooftop units, which is how our middle schools operated and our high schools operated. That would work in conjunction with what's already up there, less the VRFs, and I think we have settled through this, last 6-8 months, that is the direction we want to go. I think we've gotten great feedback from not only the work we did with Train, but also HTK and then their mechanical engineer. We all feel like this is the best course of action, not only for sustainability, but just things that we are familiar with. It's tried and true, and it'll work. It's going to do what it's supposed to do. So we've gotten to that part. The next step to this is a couple things. Sorry, I'm losing my months. In October, we will have a contract to approve with HTK for the design of this process. So if you look at it like there's an owner, there's an architect, and then there's our CMAR. HTK is doing a lot of work right now on the back end, kind of just, at their own leisure to help us out, I guess. And then we will have a fee to approve next month's board meeting that covers the actual design of this project and engineering of this project and all that. And that part's kind of the simple part of it. The sense of urgency tonight, and this is kind of to bring me to what this is, we are moving on this really, really fast. I had a quick call with HTK about 30 minutes before this meeting started tonight, so that's kind of where we're at timeline wise, is really trying to get some answers quickly. We need to post you have an action item tonight, so that's where we're at here. We need to post an RFQ for a CMAR, and all this is based on state statute, so we absolutely have to follow this process. We are trying to speed it up a little bit, and we'll kind of talk about what that needs to, but we need to post an RFQ. We are required to advertise that for 15 days before actually releasing the RFQ. So what that looks like is basically, next week we'll put it in there that, hey, this is our intent to issue an RFQ, and that is what is on your action item tonight, is just more or less the board's blessing to allow us to post for an RFQ. There is zero financial obligation to what you're approving tonight. This is really just to document from a state statute standpoint, a legal standpoint, that we have, you guys are okay with moving forward in this process. I don't think we're even gonna get there, but we can issue the RFQ. We can start taking all the information from contractors, and in 2 months we could say, hey, we don't wanna do this anymore. There's no, we're well within our right to do that if we decide to change horses in the middle of the stream. So I just really want to be clear that there is no money involved in anything we're asking for tonight from an approval standpoint. It really is just to check the box that the board and the district do have an intent to issue an RFQ, and that's what will happen. So we'll get that going next week. It'll go for 15 days. We'll have 15 days for the advertisement to post, and then on 9/30 we'll actually issue the RFQ. It'll be due by the 15th, the middle of the month, and that would basically, an RFQ is a request for qualification. So, hey, have you done this type of work before? Are you qualified to manage this project? Do you have the resources to do so? Just a lot of those boxes that we get to check. At that point in time, we will make a short list of construction managers, and that's 3 to 5 people that have responded to our RFQ that are interested in the work, and based on a number of different, that just our comfort level, I guess, we'd select 3 to 5 of those firms that can manage that. And then issue an RFP, which is actually the request for proposal. Now we're talking dollars and cents a little bit. The RFP is their ability to tell us, money-wise, costs, things like that, and how they can benefit that project. So that would be due about 10/29. The other side of this, the reason I have a couple of these things highlighted in red is because then there's a 3-phase process to select a CMAR, and I know I'm going all over the place and a lot of information here, but we really are trying to get this going. Once we get that short list of construction managers based on the response to the RFQ, then we will have to actually interview and make a selection based on a whole nother stack of criteria. And so I think we've talked a little bit with Justin about just creating a committee, and there's going to have to be a little bit of foot on the gas on some of this with a committee from the board to move through that process of interviews with the construction managers, that we can possibly make that selection. And so you have an interview, and again, just that's when they come sell to you what they're able to do. That would happen hopefully around October 30th. Then we enter a contract with that construction manager, hopefully by November 5th, and then that construction manager would be selected officially at the board meeting on November 10th. And then that GMP number we talked about earlier, that is the total cost of that project, would likely be available for approval in the December board meeting, which would then allow us to order equipment in January. And I think just based on the industry right now, we feel pretty comfortable. If we order by January, we'll be in good shape to have the equipment on site ready to go for a May project. So is there any questions on that? Because surely you guys got everything I just said.
Questions?
Remind me of how many units we're talking about.
Good. So there's 8 VRFs up there currently.
Right.
6 serve classroom wings, 1 serves the office, and 1 serves the music rooms. And so you're kind of leading me into my next part of this presentation. We initially kind of said, hey, there's 3 stacks of classrooms over there, right? We're going to do 1, 1, and 1. I think in this process, one big advantage of getting into this with HTK and a CMAR is we can look at a lot of different ways we could potentially do this. We may have somebody that says, yeah, if you guys can afford it, we can do it all in one summer and knock the whole building out. If we want to phase it over 3 to 5 years, there's a whole nother conversation for how we manage that, because I think we want consistency in the people we select. So when we do hire a CMAR, I think it will be under the idea that this could be a 1-year project, this could be a 3-year project, this could be a 5-year project, and that they would be involved in the project the entire length of that process, however we want to get there. So we obviously want to take care of the classroom wings, but then there's 2 other parts of this where we'd like to also get rid of the VRF. So how we do that, I think, is still up for a lot of interpretation.
And there are none that are better than the others, like there are.
There's some that they're moody. There's some that have better days, some better months. It's been really good thus far, minus a few things. But I think if we do a phased project, it will be with the information of, hey, this has been our biggest financial commitment to this section, which is kind of how we got to that repiping on 3-3 was our biggest spender and the most repair cost that we had put in, so we selected it there. So if we do take on a third of the building, it'll probably be the one that we just feel like we've invested the most into this point in time. And then, like I said, there's a lot of conversations to be had in this process that you see about how we want to actually manage this project, how we actually want to do it, how long it needs to take. The financial side of that obviously comes into play quite a bit as well. And then whatever protection we think we need. If this does, let's just call this a 5-year deal. We do it over the next 3 to 5 years. How do we keep our trade partners engaged and consistency in the project? So obviously a ton going on there. And like I said, I think the biggest thing is understanding that this is a very condensed timeline. And like I said, I just put this together about 30 minutes before I walked in here with the HTK principal. And there are a lot of these things on the bottom of the list, from interviews to the contract to board approval to the RFP. I mean, we're going to be pressing some people pretty hard to get us some information pretty quick to stay on this timeline to try to hopefully kick something off in May of 26. So, yeah.
Questions? So I would just probably say, Chris and I have had several conversations with Lauren and Mitch on this, and I feel really comfortable with the path that we're going down. I mean, this is other than the high school project, this is certainly the biggest financial project that this board's undertaken, and probably also the single maybe biggest pain point we've had from a facilities perspective that we're trying to resolve here. So this is not a simple process, but it's not a simple problem, and so I think it's the right approach. And Chris, would you add anything to that based on?
No, I feel good about it. I think we got the right partners. I think HTK, being the original designer of the building, helps. And I think from a competitive standpoint, I think it's our opportunity to get multiple bids and competitive bids. But there's still a lot of moving pieces to this, as far as, like Mitch said, phasing, wings, sections. But I think this is a start in the right direction. And I like the committee approach. I think that's going to be valuable, but it's also going to be some work along the way.
I would add HTK was just their general working knowledge of the building, and through this process, I think we've uncovered and opened a lot of doors that maybe could have been potentially, January, February, oh no moments for us. And I think regardless of how this ends, I think this is just a slam dunk for the right move to, whether it's 3 years, 5 years, 7 years, something like that. I think this really puts us in control of that process, start to finish, and the front end's obviously the important part of that. So, that the advice from HCK was very, very helpful to this point.
Okay.
I got a couple of things. Why don't you touch on timeline for parking lots? I mean, I know it's kind of fallen off of everybody's radar with what's going on.
Yeah,
in PBS, so
yeah.
let's touch base real quick, just so everybody hears.
I got a million things, but so we have gotten back some budgetary numbers on the parking lots from DLR through that design phase we had kind of talked about a little bit. They came in really high, honestly, and I think they came in really high based on a process very similar to this. I don't think we need to do that for a parking lot. So I guess my understanding has been we really wanted to make sure we tackled how we were handling this. This is, like Justin said, our biggest pinch point for a facility standpoint in the district. But I think at any point we are ready to finalize a design for the parking lots with DLR, and then I guess my recommendation would be that we are probably able to manage that project in-house, because it's just a lot less moving parts. Once we have an actual design there, I think we're ready to move with that, but I think that's a conversation of dollars and cents more than anything. I think the project itself is very simple comparatively to a lot of the things we do, but I think we're ready at any point to move forward with that, based on where we think we're at financially with those projects. But I don't think it's a hurry right now either. I think we can get people on board in plenty of time for completing a parking lot next summer. And I think from my standpoint, the bus parking lot is obviously the highest priority I have past the HVAC situation. So if we can really hammer down where we think we're at with this project, I think that bus parking lot that would go back here that we talked about is probably our next big tackle. And then this parking lot that we've talked about on the west side of campus could certainly be added to that. But again, if we don't think it makes dollars and cents, then not necessarily something we have to do right away. But I think we're ready to tackle it at any point. I think it's just a matter of using some of the resources we have in district to do that. So,
okay. Any questions on that? Just want to keep in touch with that.
Yeah.
And the floor over here, the
Yep.
finishing of the floor, because there's always a question about.
Yep, so we found something finally that I think works for a backflow protection. I found it on YouTube, I guess is the best way. I've called a couple of plumbers, and they are kind of like scratching their head at it. I'm going to try to get a call. I think it's going to be pretty substantial. What it is just a backflow protection. So obviously liquid can run the right way, and it cannot, and it has a flap thing but it's going to something that has to be installed in the main part of the line that's going out to the sewer. So it's a relatively, it's simple, but it's bigger than just throwing a sensor on the ground, I think. But I think that would be our guarantee. But I've talked to 2 plumbers that we use, and they are kind of scratching their head on finding it, which is odd to me because I found it on YouTube. But we have an answer. It's just a matter of finding somebody that knows what they're doing with it. So, and then finding the drain line that goes out of here, because it's going to involve digging something up and actually putting it in the main line. So,
The floor looks
floor's good.
awesome.
Floor's great. Yeah, nice
really,
job.
it really does.
Yeah, it'll be good to have that checked for the next 30, 40 years. So,
Very good.
Thanks.
thank you,
Thanks,
guys.
sir. All right, is there a motion to approve the consent agenda?
Make a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Is there a second?
I second.
It's been moved and seconded. All those in favor, raise your right hand. Opposed, same sign. Motion carried. Any public comments? Mr. Feldkamp, Superintendent Report.
Yeah, really pretty quick here. Jill and I we've talked about this. This is we have really made great positive strides with our fleet. Our bus fleet is come a long way, and we're in a good position there. But we've also talked about the number of transit vans that we have and where we're at with them. They were bought in a lot of times between 2015 and 2017, right before I got here, 18 right through there. And she kind of spelled out in the narrative, what the concerns are is just starting that process of turning some of those transit vans over and using primarily for either special education or for activities. That's really what we use them for. Then occasionally we take some larger groups of staff, but that's not the case in most cases. So, but we did attach a bid. She went out and just saw what it would cost to buy a larger transit van, order a van, and then have it modified, because they'll have to be modified, take out the back seat and pass all inspections. And the price tag's right around $59,000 for each one of those, and that's almost double of what those transits cost back in 2015 and 16. But that's the nature of where we're at. So the only thing there's no hurry on this, but the one thing we are taking, we took one of the vans for Mitch's maintenance crew out of circulation. So we're down a vehicle there. And we also talked to Barb Smith. She does haul a lot of, not cooked food, but I guess products back and forth between the kitchens. She could use one of the older vans that doesn't have air in it, for transporting, just put it with food service. Mitch could obviously use one just with his crew, take the seats out, use it more as a cargo van, kind of thing. That's really where we're at. So I just wanted to include her notes for you to look at. I don't have too much else to add unless you had any questions about it. It's just something that we'll probably have to start looking at, at some point. Right now, the vans we have are all running. We use them a lot, obviously. And you see them running in the morning, running all over the place between here and Baser, and picking up students, delivering students. 2 or 3 of them going out for either golf meets or whatever else is going on in the evening. So that's really where we're at. So I just kind of want you to think about it. But if you have any questions about it, email me, and then I can relay that to Jill. We can kind of keep working on this, because there's nothing on the lots. I mean, you'd have to place an order for these. The other big one here is, and I give you a handout, it's called Champions for Schools, and this is an initiative that I attended the Council of Superintendents a week or so ago, and this is a push for more advocacy for public schools, and I heard just a little bit of that tonight. We know that currently there is a huge push by I don't know, you could say some of the state legislative representatives to look at other options for public schools. It could be vouchers, it could be, you name it. But we have to protect the public schools and the funding that we do get from the state. This is an opportunity. If you remember, have you heard of Game On Kansas? Do you remember that? It's a group out of Olathe. Anybody familiar with them? Game On Kansas. But anyway, they are looking at being advocates for special education, being advocates for public education, and what they would like to do is meet down at Greenbush Lawrence on September 29th. It's a Monday evening. They're inviting leaders, district site councils, board members from all the school districts in the Northeast Kansas region to go down there and share their knowledge, discussion, about school funding and what direction we're headed at this point. It's more of an advocacy piece, per se. But that handout that you have, that you were given, gives that information. If you are interested in it, and I think, Becky, you sent out information today to the district site council to invite them to go. We are providing as much transportation as we can. We're not limiting it, but the first 10 for sure we would put on the RSVP list, and we might take 3 vans down to it, if more than 3 board members want to go, we will, it'll be a special board meeting. We'll just have to do the sign-off sheet. We're not going to have a meeting, but you may not even be sitting at the same tables. Obviously, because they're going to try to spread everybody out. So anyway, contact Becky if you're interested. She'll put your name on the list. And is that about the best way, Becky, you think, at this point? And so I think I would hope that Tonganoxie's represented. I mean, Tanya and I think Becky are all going. And so if anybody, we're not counting us as the top 10, but we can take 10 or more. It's just that we have to let them know. We have to let them know who's coming, so they can plan accordingly for meals and space.
Can you explain a little bit more about what it is when you're there? Like,
What you're going to do?
Yeah.
So they'll have. I know that Jim Karlskian is one of the speakers. For example, he will be talking about what the current state of public education is from the legislative perspective. So, I mean, where is public education headed for the next year or two? You know, what can we do to have our voice heard? Not just with public education, but also special education. There's a lot of push to. We're hearing now that there's a push to reduce either CTE funding or title funding, and we have to protect that. And so that's kind of what it's about. And so I think every school district will probably tell their story a little bit. What are they experiencing in their school district? Share those out. It's a 2-hour meeting. They're going to cap it from 6 to 8. They don't want it to be and you want to take up everybody's Monday evening longer than that. So, and it's if you're not familiar, Greenbush, I don't know what the name of the old grade schools. We call it Greenbush North in Lawrence. It's one of the old elementaries in.
By the lake.
It's over by the lake, yeah.
Clinton.
I don't know the name of the old elementary. Does that help a little bit?
Yeah, I just wondered what the format, like what was going
There's a gym in there. I'm sure we'll all be sitting at multiple tables, and I hope they have a good turnout. I don't know, how other school districts are approaching this, but we're promoting it internally. So anyway, if you're interested, let Becky know, and she'd be glad to sign you up.
Thank you.
Yep. Thank you.
Tanya?
All right. Well, we're kicking off our fall education career fairs. So far, we will be attending career fairs at the University of Kansas, Kansas State University, Emporia State University, and Pittsburgh State University. We are always searching for our next best and brightest teachers for future years, so we will be attending that. We'll also be attending the Tonganoxie Career Fair, the high school career fair. They'll have that in October. We usually have a table over there, and there are some future teachers that stop by our table, but there's also students who are interested in what can I do to work for the school, whether it's paraprofessional, technology, custodial, maintenance. They're just interested in different types of jobs. So we visit with them, we talk about scholarship opportunities, and that's always a fun time. Wanted to touch base a little bit. I know I've mentioned that new staff orientation that we had this year for the first time. We held summer sessions for both our certified and classified folks before they started to work on the job. After we got the school year started, we had gone back to look at the number of technology help tickets and issues we've had in the building, and we significantly decreased those for this year. Technology had fewer help tickets, many fewer help tickets than they had before. We had fewer issues in the building of folks not knowing what they're doing or where to go, or different issues getting started in their job. So we were really happy that we were able to provide those orientation sessions, and it was very beneficial for our new staff members. We've got plans for next year's sessions, a lot of improvements that we're going to make upon what we did this year, so we're excited, and it can only get better from here. Professional development, I just wanted to let you know, you may have seen posted on social media. Thanks, Becky, for posting that. I've been selected for Thrive. Kansas Association of School Boards puts on this human resources cohort, and you have to apply and be selected. It really helps build a knowledge in the area of HR law and best practices, helping us be positive and maintain an engaging workplace culture. So I'm really excited about it. It's a year-long cohort. I start actually next week with the first 2 sessions, and we'll end up in the beginning of June. So very good learning opportunity for me to learn and grow and stretch my skills. So I'm very excited. I'll report back on what I'm learning. Lauren and I met with all of the administrators. Every year we talk about setting goals. This year we've taken a deeper dive with our building goals and personal goals. We met with each of the administrators individually and looked at their individual goals, whether or not they were written as SMART goals, the alignment of individual goals with building goals, and the alignment with our strategic plan. And I was really excited as I walked through this. Initially, I was just walking through looking to see that they were written as SMART goals. Were they specific? Were they measurable? Were they accurate or appropriate, time-bound? What was really exciting to see was that their personal goals matched with their building goals, and the building goals, they all matched to our strategic plan. So everything that our building administrators are doing builds with their building goals and with our strategic plan. Every single one of their goals matched. So I was really excited to see that. They're in full alignment, all working together toward the same goal, and that's really exciting. Lauren and I will also be doing that with our coordinators and supervisors. So we talked with them at our last meeting about how to write SMART goals, walking them through that process. And they've not really had that focus in the past of writing those individual goals and then matching them up with strategic plan. So this is really a learning opportunity for those folks as well. And we'll sit down with them individually, just like we did our administrators, and walk through their goals and how they match up with not only their specific position, but also the district as a whole and our strategic plan. So it's been really exciting. Also, we have the Skyward to cumulative migration still going. We have a meeting with them every other week. Our leadership team does. We walk through specific things. We are working toward our data cleanup. We have to have all of our Skyward data cleanup from our Skyward student to our Skyward finance and human resources piece by October 3rd. They take that data and build a live training database so that we will be active and working in that database moving forward. We have our large list of professional development and training pieces that we all have to go through based on our specific job type. So there are things that I will have to go through, there are things that Rebecca will go through, and so on and so forth. We all have a piece to get that put into place, and we will go live with that on July 29th of 2026. So we've got a full year of working through building toward that implementation and turning the new system on. We're excited about that, but it's a lot of work and we've got a lot to do. And that's all I have for you, unless there are any questions.
Questions? Thank you. All right, moving into action items. Action item 8.1, approve additional warrant list items. I would make a motion that we approve action item 8.1 as presented. Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor, raise your right hand. Opposed, same sign. Motion carried. Approval of the supplemental general fund percentage. So this is otherwise known as the local option budget. We have to pass a resolution. The resolution currently reads, be it resolved that the above named school board shall be authorized to make a local option percentage in the amount of 32.3% for the 2025-2026 school year. This is to certify that the above resolution was duly adopted by the Board of Education of Unified School District number 464, Leavenworth County, Kansas on the 8th day of September 2025. This is in line with the state average for local option budget, which is what we've historically done. I would move that we approve the resolution as read. Is there a second?
1 second.
All those in favor, raise your right hand. Opposed, same sign. Motion carried. Next topic is approval of the 2025-2026 budget. Any discussion? No, we've talked about it some already. No discussion? All right, I would move that we approve action item 8.3, approval of 2025-2026 budget as presented. Is there a second?
A second.
All those in favor, raise your right hand. Same sign, motion carried. All right, and then the final action item was 8.4, approval of intent for construction manager at risk notice. Again, this is approving the publication of a notice to send an RFQ. There's no financial commitment, but again, I think it's the right way to fix the TES HVAC project. So I would move that we approve action item 8.4 as presented. Is there a second?
A second.
All those in favor, raise your right hand. Opposed, same sign, motion carried. All right, we do have a need to adjourn to executive session. I would move that we adjourn to executive session to discuss non-elected personnel matters for 45 minutes, including Mr. Feldkamp. Is there a second?
A second.
All those in favor, raise your right hand. Opposed, same sign. We are temporarily adjourned. no immediate actions coming out of executive session. We will likely have a special board meeting, Zoom meeting, Monday, the 15th at 6 o'clock, and we'll work with Forrest to get that scheduled. Any other discussion or announcements? Meeting adjourned.